keep finding ways that we're helping partners finding either, balance in their life or focus or purpose.
Practices that are going to help improve your project management skills or your finances.
We're here to talk about setting long-term goals and then how to achieve them.
Increasing your quality, therefore becoming the best place in town to work.
Welcome to Academy Live.
Welcome back to Academy Live. In this episode, we invite Graham Rosenberg to break down how to get team members skilled up in Robotic Process Automation, or RPA, and how to find qualified candidates who would excel in these roles. Graham shares his experience with building a robotic process automation team, finding the right people with the right mindset, and what mindset MSPs should have when beginning their journey into next-gen automation. A very hot topic right now. Graham works for SourcePass, who won PackSite Beyond Partner of the Year last year. So we want to acknowledge that and give them a shout out. So thanks again for being a great partner and for coming on the show, Graham. We're going to be talking with him in just a bit. But first, we want to check out our CEO, Scott Chasen's keynote that he gave at Beyond. I think it will really help to start our conversation with Graham really nicely, and he's talking all about robots. So let's take a look at that video.
Let's keep going out into the future. Say 10 years from now, when we start to experience the embodiment of AI with commoditized and general robotics. That's right, robots. They're coming. NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, recently said the next wave of AI is going to be AI that's physical, AI that understands the laws of physics, AI that can work among us. As multimodal AI continues to evolve, so will AI's understanding of our world model. And once it has that capability, well then, you'll see robots running factories, working alongside us, managing domestic duties, and even robots building robots. This $3 trillion industry that we live in is going to use AI to service $100 trillion industry worldwide. Will no longer simply be an instrument for data and manual tasks. AI will create factories for generating intelligence across every industry through robotics. And many of these machines will be humanoid, and they'll number in the billions. So today, there are over 30 companies funded by deep pockets that are working on these humanoid robots, such as Tesla and Figure. And as their cognitive abilities improve, they'll start to understand us and our tasks, and while the world will forever be changed. Let's take a look at some of the possible scenarios for the MSP industry with this robotic future. If we want to talk about robots, we also need to talk about managing them. Enter remote robotics management, or RRM. If you think RMM is important to MSPs, wait till you see how important RRM is about to be. MSPs will offer cutting-edge services for remotely operating and supporting robot fleets, allowing clients to monitor and control the robotic systems from anywhere in the world. And eventually, all industries, like agriculture, logistics, security, will benefit from this remote oversight with greater efficiency and control. We'll also see robotic security and surveillance solutions for delivering autonomous monitoring and advanced threat detection capabilities. Robots will secure the physical perimeter and be a part of the cybersecurity posture that blends the physical and the digital once and for all. In my last long-term forecast, we'll also see collaborative robots, or cobots, in the workforce, enabling these advanced machines to work right alongside employees with more productivity and better safety across all industries. Think beyond warehouses in industrial. Cobots will be in retail. They'll be at Starbucks, your dentist, in your doctor's office, construction, legal, and so much more. This is truly when sci-fi collides with reality. I don't have time to cover everything on my list. But to sum it up, we're on the brink of the greatest technical revolution in history. Have no doubt what we are witnessing. AI and robotics, they're going to change the world for all of us.
Ponderous. That's the only word I can really think about is ponderous. Great stuff. And I'm really excited. I can't think of anybody better to talk about this stuff than our guest today. And I'd like to welcome Graham to the show. And welcome. Good to see you, Graham. How you doing today?
Hey, Chris. I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you. I love special guests, and I wanted to tease you. I was going to say, I really wanted to have my granddaughter Hadley on the show as a special guest, but she's not much into conversation. So I wanted to bring somebody else with a nice little baby face that could have a great conversation. So welcome. Do me a favor, though. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about you. You've had quite a journey in your roles in technology, but introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got there.
Sure. I was wondering where you're going with that comment. In my early 20s, the baby face I wasn't the biggest fan of the baby face, but now I'm in my mid 30s and it's a blessing. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Enjoy it. It's a blessing.
Yeah. So I'm Graham Rosenberg. I'm director of Robotic Operation Center here at SourcePass. I've been in the MSP space industry for about the last 8 years. I started with Machine Logic here in Denver, Colorado. I started there as a tier 1 service desk technician, took over management that team, worked up, started running the whole director of operations, running our integrations and our tool set, and dabbling in automation. It was really a hobby for us. Being a smaller team, it was what we did for fun on the side. About a year ago, Machine Logic joined forces with SourcePass, and I joined the SourcePass team. And from there, was put in charge of the automation and robotic process automation that we have here.
Wow. Okay, so let me ask, watching that keynote that Scott Chasen presented at Beyond, you're there and saw that, but watching it again here, does that kind of validate your role a little bit? Does that kind of bring it into this is a real thing? Or tell me a little bit about your reactions in watching that again.
Yeah, absolutely. I was there live, as you said, and that was definitely the chatter afterwards, was what everyone thought of it. And there was a lot of fear amongst the crowd. I took the opposite approach. I'm here for it. With the wave of AI, it's really the hot buzzword these days, but AI's been here for quite a few years, and it's just now getting mainstream, and people on the street, non-technology, are talking about it. But it's been here for a few years. Anyone who's played with an AI chatbot, it's pretty mind-blowing the first time you play with it. I mean, it's changed my world and how I operate and work. But you play with it long enough, you realize it's smart, but it's not super smart. It's not humanized smart. And I don't have the fears that a lot of people have about it. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. It's only going to continue to be innovated upon. But I'm not worried.
There's still definitely a progression of this, right? I mean, I think you bring up a great point that to most people, this is brand new. To a lot of people that have been around, you've kind of seen the progression. So you're not at your starting point is kind of seeing the history, and other people, this seems, in a different spot. It didn't explain that very well. So I'm going to kick it to you with a question to hope save this. But looking at this progression of what you've played with, what are some of your biggest accomplishments so far up to this point in your role, and what do you see as one or two of the biggest opportunities for you and for other MSPs to kind of start thinking about in the near future?
Yeah, so when we build our process automations, most of our automations are to help our internal operation, help our internal departments communicate, work better together. And only 20 or so percent of our automations are for customers in particular. So we track how many man hours we save on a per automation basis. And right now we're saving about 1,000 man hours per week in just robotic process automations. And we're a team of 3 in our department right now. So it's 120 man hours a week. So we're saving tenfold that.
Wow. Okay. That's significant. I'd say that's compelling. Well, let's continue the conversation, but I want to bring on Rex and Bessie as well, so you can kind of join the conversation. Welcome, Rex and Bessie. Rex, any thoughts or any questions for Graham?
First of all, on Chasen's keynote there, it's like, when am I going to get the RMM tool for remotely monitoring and managing robots? Like that sounds cool. I didn't have that on my radar, so I'm glad he brought that out. I'm learning a little bit about RPA. I know we've been using companies like Rewst and others. MSP Toolbox, I think, was one that was early to the game with RPA. But I'm still learning about how we can use it. I got to tell you, whenever a partner is talking about buying a tool, I remind them that for every dollar that they spend on a tool, that they have to offset the labor cost by 3 times that dollar, right? So they have to offset labor by $3. And when you say that you're saving 1,000 man hours, that really got my attention. It made me want to pay a lot more attention and learn a lot more about what RPA is. Bessie?
Yeah. Graham, do you mind just setting the stage for us and tell us what even is RPA? What is robotics process automation? Can you just give us a quick definition so we're all speaking the same language here?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it pretty high level. So imagine if you're building a flow chart in Visio, and you have a start, you do some actions, and then you have an end. RPA is just taking that flow chart and having a computer do that process for you, do that workflow. So generally something kicks off the process. So whether it's, it can be on a time basis, like once an hour, I want this to happen, or, once a week, I want this to happen. Alternatively, you could have a trigger based on something else. Inside your PSA, a specific ticket hits a specific status. That can trigger a process to go do something. And being able to tie into all these different APIs and your different vendors, you can have a status change trigger something in a variety of different tools. So you can kick off a scan in your antivirus tool. You can send a Teams message to a specific chat or a specific channel inside Teams to notify people. There's just being able to automate, like I mentioned earlier, on your Visio workflow diagram, being able to automate that without any human interaction.
What's one of the things that you've automated that you really are just super proud of? Like, I automated that and it's really saving us.
Yeah, internally is going for our PSA, just helping our internal kind of workflow and process. We get a lot of tickets that come in not the way we want them to look, whether the titles are incorrect, the company is incorrect, the type, subtype, item are incorrect. Being able to grab this ticket, pull information out, and then reformat the ticket to make it more just easier to work on. You can auto close tickets. You can just make it super easy for your team. That way, rather than getting in and doing a bunch of busy work, making the ticket look correct, they can get right to work. I think that's been the biggest value we've seen so far.
So I got to ask, how did you figure all this out? Like, what was your learning path? What was the learning curve? Like, what was your journey to be able to do these things? It wasn't like you woke up one day and said, "Oh, I'm gonna save us 1,000 hours," and what if we did this here? Explain your journey a little bit to how you learned to kind of leverage these tools and figure some of this out?
Yeah, so before we even get into the automation aspect of it, my time at Machine Logic, I was involved heavily in helping create processes or just changing our internal processes. RPA aside, just working on that. And I love to tell people when they say, hey, can this be automated? I like to ask them, what's the current process? Because if we don't have a process that's documented and repeatable, we can't automate it. So my journey really started in process definition and creating processes, making sure they're repeatable, easy to understand. From there, this is before the MSP tools were out there. I used a lot of Power Automate from Microsoft and just got my feet wet building simple workflow automations. If I get an email from Chris, move it straight to deleted. I could build workflows. It started very, very basic with that. And now that we use Rewst internally, and it's a great product. It really helps us tie into all of the different MSP tools. Easy to use, low code solution.
Very cool. I was really thinking about that as you were talking of like, you need to have your processes really in place before you're ready to automate them. And I think that's where us in Academy really love to hear that, because we are so all about process. Rex, is there anything you wanted to add about that piece?
Well, I mean, that's what one of the things Academy is all about. Is I love that saying that there's a doc for that to kind of riff on the marketplace. But no, I love that you said that we have to understand what the process is before we can automate it. And as companies go through their maturity cycles, if you go look at the plateaus course that we have in Academy on Demand, right? We talk about what we measure, what the KPIs are, how they change as we move through the different maturity levels, right? It's like at first, our KPIs are people following the processes, right? And then as we mature and people are following the processes, then are the processes creating the outcomes we're looking for? I'm feeling like there's going to be a new KPI, like how much of the work done was by automation. It will probably be in one of our higher maturity level KPIs. And this talk is kind of making me start to think through that a little bit. Are you guys measuring anything like that now?
Yeah, so
I guess
KPI,
you would. You said 1,000 hours.
Yeah, the KPI that we really focus on is time saved. And when we build it, so Rewst allows you to put this in, which makes it super easy, is when we go through and build a process, we say how many man hours would this have taken. A lot of times it's only 15 seconds, but you take 15 seconds, multiply it by 1,000, you start gaining those time savings. So the time savings is really the KPI that we track the most in our department. And just seeing the progression of it is over the last few months has been pretty phenomenal to see.
So, one of the things about the process I want to ask is, I'm sure you can relate to this when somebody just brought up, hey, we have this issue, we want you to solve it, and it's a technology problem. And when you uncovered it's not a technology problem, it's kind of a people problem, it's a human issue. Talk to me a little bit about this challenge of kind of getting the idea, oh, I want to automate this, I want to use this technology, I want to use RPA, and kind of pulling it back. And I mean, I'd love to hear some of the challenges and ways you've kind of overcome of getting everything put into this framework of, okay, but what's the process now? It has to be documentable. It's not just this magic wand array of, and this, now these problems go away because we used automation. Does that make sense? I'd love to hear how you've addressed some of those challenges with working with being able to leverage the tools and be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So at first we launched this department late last year. Getting some traction internally took a little bit of time. A lot of people didn't know what RPA was. They didn't understand what could be automated. So I started a monthly meeting where I brought departmental leaders into a call. And we just riffed a little bit about what issues are we having, what what are some processes that we wish could be improved? And slowly but surely, we started just showing some of the automations that we built, some of the processes that we've built. And now our board is filled with requests. It's been pretty awesome how quickly the traction's gotten internally. But generally, I start, before we dive into automating a process, I usually jump on a call with the departmental leader, and we talk through what the process is. We make sure, number one, it's fully documented. If it's not documented, we don't want to automate it. A big thing is automation. A lot of people look at it as the solution, but really automation is a tool in the journey to get to the solution. We want to make sure that the process that we're automating is sound. We don't want to automate a bad process. We want to make sure that from start to finish, the process is running smooth, it's repeatable. And then, yeah, the time savings, it's a great thing, but really what I love most about automating processes is the accuracy you get out of it. You don't have a human fat fingering anything in between. You don't have to worry about typos or anything like that. The process is going to be automated, and all those issues are going to go away for the most part.
Great example.
Totally agree. So Graham, I just did a little math. 150 an hour divided by 60 minutes is $2.50 a minute. Divided by 60 seconds is about 4.16 cents per second is what your billing rate is, right? And then you said something just took 15 seconds, right? You saved 15 seconds. Well, that's 62.5 cents every time you do that of potential revenue.
Time is money, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, every time you save 15 seconds,
that's how we've gotten our 1,000 hours of time savings thus far. It's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, probably up to 50 or so workflows now that are just building that time savings on top of one another.
And that's value that you're delivering to your clients that you rightfully could be billing $150 an hour or more for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that you brought that up.
I mean, being able to do automation as a service, aside from just the technical tickets that you work on, but going into these customer environments and saying, what are some processes that you're struggling with? Something that the MSP business usually wouldn't touch, but now you can come in and say, hey, let me help you automate this process, or let me help you define this process. It really evolves what the MSP can do and really make us a partner rather than a vendor.
I love that. Well, I was going to ask a different question, but I want to kind of focus on this now. So can you tell us some of these, are there any examples of clients who have requested automation or you've built automation for them? It's a bit different than in the MSP space. I was going to ask about help desk specifically, but it seems like, that would be quite different for working with one of your other clients. Can you share a few examples?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big one that's helped a lot of companies is new user onboarding. And you can think of automating the new user onboarding piece. It helps the MSP a lot because it's the MSP that's generally going to be creating that user. But you can take it a step further and inject yourself into their whole HR process. Add a question on the front end form like, hey, does this person need a corporate credit card? If they check yes on that, you can trigger an email or a Teams message to their internal CFO. Or, do they need, what's their shirt size? You can ask that from the get-go, and now you can store that in their HRIS system. There's a lot more that you can do to help the new employee onboarding process than just creating their account and licensing them. Another example, we have some co-managed clients that they interact with us in a variety of different scenarios in different ways, but a lot of times these co-managed clients have their own ticketing system and they want to work out of their ticketing system. They don't want to interface with your ticketing system. So being able to create automations that synchronizes data between their ticketing system and your PSA, that way you can update in one system and it reflects in the other and vice versa. It really helps smooth communication and process between the two companies working together.
That's a great example, and I think that the data. And you talked about the accuracy. Talk a little bit about. I'd love to hear the benefits. Like we talk in a lot of the courses or in peer groups or things like that with the starting with why, right, and kind of understanding. And you kind of alluded to something like that. Okay, what are you trying to accomplish here? But I'd love to hear some other whys. You said internally you kind of use this, but what are some other reasons people have pursued or invested time and effort into learning and leveraging RPA?
I mean, so we've talked about the time savings. We've talked about the accuracy. Part of that goes along with that is instead of having humans do data entry work, you can have them focus on more things that are more exciting to them. It can help morale internally by, doing something more. I think humans are supposed to be creative at their core, and data entry is not creative, and that's a big reason why I'm here. Going back to Scott's keynote, I'm here for the robots. I want humans to do things that they're passionate about, that they're enjoying, and I think we can get there by just automating more and more and just getting rid of the mundane, tedious tasks.
Now I want this captured. We've been talking about capturing those. I think that's a quote that we need to capture is I'm here for the robots. And I like that.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good Facebook post for the day.
Well, Rex, I mean, if you think back to your career and when you were maybe not exactly.
That's a Wayback Machine.
I wasn't going to comment about that. But if, think about, how do you think your life would be different if you had access to these kind of tools or this kind of thinking when you were kind of in the role of, process documentation and processes and operations and streamlining? How different would you think your life would be or your role would be?
Well, I mean, the last 15 years, I've had a career out of helping people understand their processes, and mostly it's been about helping people understand how to get their people to follow the processes, right? And I think we've tried to leverage as much automation as we can throughout that journey, but there just wasn't a lot of automation tools available. So we had to try to get people to follow the standardized processes, which is marginal at best. And I totally love what Graham said about not only is it time savings having automation when this condition occurs, do this action, but the consistency of the quality, and then ultimately the consistency of quality of service we're delivering, I think just would have been so much better all along. So I'm excited that it's finally here now. In my mind, I'm having a little bit of trouble though distinguishing between what tasks we would do that are RPA and what tasks we would do now that we would consider AI. Right. So I don't know, Graham, if you have any thoughts on like helping us draw a line or distinguish between RPA and AI.
Sure. So they're related. You can inject AI into your RPA process. At its core, RPA, Robotic Process Automation, is a repeatable process. You take data from A, you filter it through, and you come out with Z at the end. Where you can inject AI into this would be, an example. If you pump all your ticket data into like the Azure OpenAI APIs and say, hey, I want every time we get a ticket that has this type and this subtype, I know we're going to have 2,000 characters in this ticket description. Please reduce it down to 500 characters. You can pump that in. You know, a chatbot can pump back out a reduced version that's more clear and more concise. I think we're going to see more and more of this as, you know, we progress. I see a lot of vendors offering AI as a service. I know Pax8 talked a lot about it at Beyond, that AI is coming into the platform. And I think these AI endpoints are going to be accessible via API, and you'll be able to call upon, you know, a Pax8 API, and inside of Pax8, they'll use AI to cleanse whatever data they're sending back to you. So I think they go hand in hand. They are different, but I think they're already starting to get integrated together.
Yeah, you know, I'm already looking at a lot of type, subtype, and item, or in auto task, issue, type, and category, subcategory. But you know, we're trying to look at this data, and I've been working with Larry at MSP CFO to create some ticket benchmarks, like how long does it take to do a printer repair? How long does it take to do an antivirus infection? Or how long does it take to do this, right? So if we can categorize the tickets, we can get some benchmarks like, hey, the average virus infestation takes, you know, 4.23 hours to clean up, and we're sitting at 8 hours, right? So we're trying to do some ticket, categorization, benchmarking, but I also love looking at that data. It's like, where's our time going? Well, 22% of our time is going toward, I don't know, password resets, right? So that's where I'm saying, look, we need to look here for automation. You know, let's look for where the bulk of our time is going, and you're going to find, just looking, even segmenting the data by client, that there's this client, the bulk of our time goes toward printer repair issues or their hosted application issues or whatever. But that's where we want to zero in and target automation. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure the things you're automating are valuable to not just you and your team, but to the company as a whole. And that's kind of where we started with our automation journey here at SourcePass, was, you know, using the security alerts, as you mentioned, as an example, the antivirus alerts. A lot of those alerts are, you know, they may come in, and by the time you go look at them, they've been fixed. The antivirus agent already went ahead and fixed that for you. So something that we're doing now is we're tying into the Sentinel-1 API and pulling that data after the ticket's already created. And if the ticket's resolved, we'll resolve the ticket in our system, which allows, you know, everything that you now have is actionable. There's no going through and seeing what's a real alert, what's not a real alert. So kind of answers your question in a way that, you know, you can reduce the amount of data entry and mundane tasks, and you can really start to actually see, okay, I spent 22% of my time on antivirus tickets. You can now reduce that to, you know, under 10% because you've gotten rid of the self-heal alerts, just as an example.
That's huge. And I just imagine thinking through what people need to know, you have to spend a lot less time with solving and redoing those things, and maybe more on the creative or strategic. But on that, I can't help. I still in this. I'm afraid to be that person back in my day. But I think an RPA, your role, your job title, definitely when I was your age, was not something that was going to be in the ads and, you know what, answer job. Things change. We know that. We've talked recently on shows how, like, AI prompt generator or a prompter, you know, those are going to be skill sets that are going to become part of roles and jobs. I'm curious to know, like, what are some of the attributes, looking at the human element of being in the role you are and the team that you have, what are some of your thoughts moving forward about what are those skill sets you're looking for? What are the attributes on, you know, people contributing on your team that you're looking for, you see in the future being relevant to companies like yours or MSPs?
Yeah, it's a great question. The automation engineers with MSP experience don't exist in the job market. If you went and tried to find someone that's done this before, It's just such a new thing in the industry that you're going to struggle to find it. So you got to kind of take a step back and look at what mindset are you looking for. It's part developer, part problem solver. So a lot of times when I'm interviewing for roles like this, I'm looking for, do you have MSP experience? It's not a deal breaker, but that's one of the biggest barriers to entry is you take an enterprise automation engineer who's been doing this for 10 years and you drop them into an MSP. They don't understand multi-tenancy. They don't understand being able to build things at scale in such a way that's a little different per customer. They don't understand, the partner center with Microsoft. So there's some challenges there. So if you're looking for someone with MSP experience, finding those individuals that have been working inside of the RMM, who's been creating PowerShell scripts, who's created scripts or automations kind of going back a few years that used to be automation in MSP. So I have an RMM. I'm automated patching. We're fully automated. Well, this is kind of the new wave of RPA and trying to find those folks that have that mindset, that are able to problem solve. They understand scripting and coding at least on a high level, and then being able to bring them in and train them up. Even then, it's not going to be a turnkey operation. You gotta, as the MSP, you have to invest in your team, in your teammates, to get skilled up. It's not something that you're going to pick up in a week or even a month. I say the kind of ramp up to get someone fully going is 90 days.
Oh, yeah, I could see it being longer. But I mean, that thing that goes through, investing in your people, investing in your company. I think this is a great opportunity for people to think about how to invest it. I think back to it, Rex quoted, something on a previous episode of, some of that fear of, well, what if I train somebody and they leave, and then the response being, well, what if you don't and they stay? Right? I mean, keeping people relevant, giving them the opportunity. This is where this is going. So I think that's a great investment.
Yeah, and on that note, being able to allow your teammates that you're training up in this to fail a little bit, you won't see an ROI. You're not going to get 1,000 hours time saved or even 40 hours time saved right away. It's going to be an investment. You're going to need them to really fail, figure out where they're tripping up, really invest in them because it's going to pay off. The ROI on the back end, it's exponential.
Bessie, do
Well,
you have
we've been
anything you
talking.
wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've started kind of talking about this conversation, but we've talked a lot about the benefits. We've started talking about some of the challenges, especially when you're starting this RPA process up. Can you talk a little bit more about, what are some challenges that MSPs might experience as they're building this up and some ideas on overcoming those?
Yeah, absolutely. We use the tool called Rewst as our main RPA tool. We use a couple different ones, but that's the main one we use. And when you're going through and really defining the scope of the workflows you're working on,
Oop,
can you
I
guys
don't
hear
know
me
if I
okay?
can. Oh, yeah, yep, we can hear you okay. Wasn't sure what happened there, but are you okay?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, all good. Can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, just saying, what are some of the challenges that MSPs might experience as they're starting up their own RPA system or plan, and how can they maybe anticipate how to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so a lot of the MS or the automation tools, they advertise, hey, we're turnkey. You can come in,
Yeah,
you add
turn
this
it
little,
on.
yeah, you can go in, add this widget. We've created all these automations that you can go in there and just turn them on and you can go. In my experience, that's not, it's, you can get some value out of there, especially when you're templating your own workflows. But the true value comes in when you can go in and customize it to your business. And some of the challenges that may come along with that is instead of it being a low code, no code solution, it's now going to be, okay, there's some code in here. It might be some high level code and it's not an application level coding, but you need someone who understands the syntax, who can go in there and customize these workflows to tailor to your business. Because at the end of the day, that's really what you're trying to help and automate.
Some of the early stuff I was used to work with had great power to do good things, but I discovered it also had great power to do bad things. I've seen just some ConnectWise workflow rules. Somebody forgets to say, only apply this on open tickets, and next thing you know, they're doing something to hundreds of thousands of closed tickets, right? So, any advice on how to get the power for the good and try to be careful not to accidentally break a bunch of stuff?
Yeah, been there, done that, more recently than you might think. But the big thing is just make sure you really vet your workflows and test them. We have a dev instance of our PSA, so we're able to just throw things out the wall and really robustly test our workflows before we go into production. Being able to do that has been such a game changer. But mistakes happen. With RMMs, it's the same way. PSA workflow rules, as you mentioned, same thing. So you just got to be very diligent. Check your filters really closely. Tools like Rewst, they allow you to mock workflows, which is super nice. You're able to turn on mocking and say, hey, I want to change this ticket, but don't change it. I just want to see what the logs would say. So being able to do things like that is really valuable.
Very
I thought
cool.
mocking.
Anybody
I
else
like
just
that.
have
That mocking is
Mockingbird
good. I was
run
thinking
through
it was
their
more
head?
Yeah. You call that a workflow? You call this automation? Yeah, you can do better than that. That's what I was. But mocking, meaning going through the actions without making changes, much better. That makes a lot more sense. Sorry,
Yes.
Rex. Is there, Graham? Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or kind of anything you haven't had a chance to express about RPA?
One thing that I think would help MSPs a lot. This can really go to any business, not just MSPs that want to get involved in RPA and automation. Is ensure you have an executive sponsor. Bringing in an automation technician and saying, "Get to work and start automating." You're going to be fraught with peril, and it's not going to end up well. Having someone who really understands the MSP space or understands your business, who can come in and kind of lead direction on which processes to automate, and is super, super valuable. And that will get your business traction way faster than just having an engineer figure out what they think is important. Having an executive sponsor is really my closing remarks on that.
So what I just heard is even the robots need leadership.
Oh, 100%. That's how I opened up talking about Scott's keynote is play with a chatbot long enough, you'll realize you're in control and you need to tell it what to do. These things aren't going to take over anytime soon. I'm here for the robots.
I think this whole conversation has really swayed me because when I listened to Scott, I was like, I am so scared. Like, they're going to take over. I've seen the horror stories. I've seen the movies. I'm terrified, but I'm feeling a little bit better after our conversation today. So I want to thank you so much, Graham, for that and for shedding just so much light on this entire topic. We were talking before the show that this is a little bit of a new area for all three of the hosts. So we want to just thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom, and for being such a great PackSafe partner. And yeah, just thank you so much. So we're going to say goodbye to you now, and we're going to hear next from Keith Marciano with Sales Pitch. So let's take it away.
Play ball.
It ain't over till it's over, and baseball is 90% mental and the other half is physical. These are two of my favorite quotes by Yogi Berra. Why are they? One, they're just funny. Two, they make no sense. Well, actually, they kind of do. No MSP would ever send a unskilled technician out to fix a serious network problem. But the same MSPs will send out untrained salespeople all the time. Salespeople that are untrained on prospecting, qualifying, having conversation, uncovering opportunities, negotiating, closing business. We miss that all the time. Have you set your salesperson up for success? Did you properly onboard them? Or did you just welcome them to your team, review some of the basics and say, go get them, Tiger? We do this all the time. What do professional athletes do to stay in the pros and to be their best? They have regiments around their fitness and their nutrition, and they have personal coaches to help them be better. Sales is a skill, not an activity. If you're a salesperson or you're an MSP that's looking to hire a salesperson, how can you be better? Let's touch all the bases on what healthy sales organizations do to improve their salespeople. 1. Coaching and training around sales. Irregular, non-cancelable, helping us to improve our sales skills. The best professional athletes have a coach to help them. You need to get resources to the salespeople to help them polish their sales skills. I'll say it again. Sales is a skill, not an activity. 2. Focus on leading behaviors and key metrics, such as first-time appointments achieved, proposals delivered, and wins. Them hitting the sales targets and quotas, the revenue that they're generating is the goal. 3. Help them through the sales cycle. Identifying throughout the sales cycle in each particular process where things may be going wrong and where things are going right. Where's the breakdown? Being able to coach and fix it so that way you can win the business, and reinforcing the things that are going well. 4. Be present. Weekly one-on-ones or weekly sales meetings with your sales team are important. Training during your sales meetings, development of that sales skills. When you have multiple salespeople, those are needed. And then the weekly one-on-ones. Listen, people want to be heard. Even if you're technical, strike up a conversation. Get to know the person. Uncover the things that are going on in their life. Before you kind of get into the things that you want to accomplish in a sales meeting, start by listening. Ask them how you can help. Go along with them on appointments. So, for salespeople, invest in yourself. Read books on sales. Pay for sales coaching and training. Be better. This is your career, right? The reward for you is higher income. For owners, here's your choice, right? Really one choice. Train and invest in your salespeople. Don't be afraid to train them and then worry that they're going to leave and go to the competition. What happens if they stay and you don't train them and they stink, right? Invest time in them, train them, help them be better, and they're going to knock it out of the park for you.
Play ball.
Thanks so much, Keith. I know we heard that a little bit earlier today in our conversation with Graham, but so important to train up your people to provide guidance, whether they're in the sales department or they're in the automation department or whatever department they might be in. They're going to need support along the way. So just want to thank Keith so much for giving us those insights. And next, we're going to go to final thoughts.
So, real quick on Keith's sales pitch there, I just wanted to point out that for probably half of our partners, the salesperson that he's talking about is the owner, right? And all those messages about getting training and that all still applies to the owner, not just when you have a salesperson. So anyway, just wanted to wrap up a little bit on this RPA we've been trying to figure it out for a long time. The tools are getting better and better and better. Rewst was kind of a game changer in the market. If you haven't looked at Rewst, I think you should. And Graham was exactly right. You got to pick the person who's going to dive into this stuff and try to understand it. And they're going to fail a little bit. And that's just part of getting things going, right? You got to fail fast and fail often, but embrace it and start leveraging it. And you're going to see the improved margins that you're looking for, which makes lives a little bit better for everybody. So definitely dive into that. I do want to take a second and apprise everybody about something that David Shaffron and I have coming up on Tuesday, July 16th, from 1 to 1:45. It says Eastern, I believe that's right. We're going to spend about 30 minutes talking about how to maximize your company's business valuation. And then again, have about 30 minutes of presentation and then about 15 minutes of Q&A. So hope to see everybody live on that webinar. The link to register for that webinar is in the YouTube description. So go ahead and take a look at that, and I'll get it posted here in a chat in 1 second. Chris, what do you think? Final thoughts?
So I really appreciate Graham and kind of giving, I think it was very helpful, like what Bessie said. And, I know not to go over the edge, but I can't help kind of have that response like Bessie of kind of, Isaac Asimov, robot, I think about all the robot stuff. But I think it's really exciting to think about the potential, looking at the accuracy, the amount of hours saved, time is money, the actual impact that these things can have, I think is huge. So I'm actually really excited about what some of the future and the potential is we have of leveraging them. I think the reality too behind it is that it's not an easy button. It's not a light switch. It's not just let's go turn on RPA and let's just hit the leverage AI button and everything works. There's going to be a lot of effort behind it. There's going to be learning curves. There's going to be changing your mindset. We've talked a little bit before and interacting with AI. But I think if people and companies are willing to invest that, I think the output will be huge. So Bessie, how about you?
Yeah, I think when it comes to AI and automation, oftentimes we hear, oh, it's going to take our jobs. It's going to take away jobs. But I know from learning about Graham's role that it is creating jobs too. So there's lots of opportunity out there, and it just made me really excited to hear about. I also was wanting to make sure that you know that we have Academy on Demand. Though we don't have a ton of information specifically about RPA yet, building it all very soon, we do have some resources that I want to take a look and show you. So let's take a look at, show you some of those options. So on today's show, we talked about some automation, we talked about AI, we talked a little bit about help desk even. So I want to show you a few ways that you can find this material in Academy. Of course, you can always search for content in the platform. There's two other ways I want to show you how to search though. You can go to the user menu and you can look at learning by category. Learning by category, and you can look and see which topics seem like they might fit the most. So for example, today's topics might be interested in learning more about artificial intelligence. And you click in there and you'll see all the different content that we have related to artificial intelligence. Lots of great stuff in there. Then you can also take a look at the user menu and you can search by role. So if you're part of the help desk and you're wanting to learn more about your role there, you can take a look at help desk, for example, click into it and see all of the content is right here. So you can take a look. So I hope that you're exploring Academy on Demand to see what content might be relevant for you. Thanks. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Please be sure to check us out next week. Our guests will be Christopher Kirby and Elliot Chandler of Pax8. They'll be talking all about getting started with Microsoft Azure. So if you're curious or you want to learn more, it's going to be a show not to miss. Remember, we are live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time and on demand always. So do not forget to subscribe and like our YouTube channel. Rex, close us out.
Yeah, so spend the rest of the day thinking about how you're going to leverage robots and automation tomorrow. Thanks.
Bye.